Jiminy Crickets.
Jiminy Cricket is the name. I'm a happy-go-lucky fellow, always getting in wrong for singing my song. A merry old soul am I. Jiminy Cricket is the name. I'll be hanging around this evening. I'll be tipping my hat and telling you that Jiminy Cricket is the name.
Hello, Cricketeers, and welcome to our July 2025 episode of Dateline Jiminy Crickets. And as you saw, we have a very special guest. Would you introduce yourself, very special guest?
Hello, Chris and Ruthie. I'm Shawn Deganhart, Deganhart Music, huge Disney fan, musician, and self-publisher of the Cinderella full score study score.
And because of that, we're going to theme this episode all around the topic of Cinderella, and we will get into your publication in depth during our interview segment. And one other important thing, Ruthie's here.
Hello, Chris.
Ruthie.
Hello, Cricketeers.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
And so let's get on to our Cinderella themed top 10 list. So, because this is a Cinderella episode, we thought it would be fun to do a top 10 Cinderella characters. And Shawn was not involved in the rankings. So you can only blame Ruthie and me if
I
you
take
disagree.
no blame on this.
Yes, he takes no accountability for these decisions. But he will chime in. If he disagrees, he will certainly make his voice heard, and we encourage it. So we're going to go through like we normally do, starting with the bottom, number 10, and working our way up to number 1. And incidentally, there really are only about 10 characters to choose from. So I don't think we might have left out like the guy with the shoe on the pillow that comes in at the end.
Yeah, the footman or something like
that.
that. Yeah.
I think that's really the only character we left out.
And he was my number 1.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
He's really developed in the movie.
Yes.
Right. So we'll start off with number 10. And we chose Prince Charming as number 10. Now, there's only 10 major characters in this film, so we're not saying that because he's at the bottom he's not important or we don't like him, or we only had 10 to pick from, so somebody had to be number 10.
Yes.
And out of all the characters, I feel like his character is the least developed, and he's sort of like just sort of there to move the plot. He doesn't really have much to do with anything other than he's there to fit a purpose for the story. He's really devoid of personality in the Disney version. So that's kind of why we gave him a 10. And Shawn,
He doesn't even get his own song.
No, he sings
He
with
sings
Cinderella.
a few lines. Yeah.
Yes. So, Prince Charming, who doesn't even have an actual name in the film.
Right.
I think in later publications and things, they did give him a name, but it's not canon to the film. It wasn't part of the original film that he had a name. He was just Prince Charming. So, number 9.
To go through life with that moniker.
Yes.
Oh, wouldn't that be terrible?
Charming.
So, next is Bruno, who is the faithful dog, Cinderella's companion. Now, Bruno, unlike another pet that we're going to name later, was the pet of Cinderella when she was a child, before Lady Tremaine came into the picture. So this is Cinderella's actual family dog, and he's faithful to Cinderella. The reason we know that for sure is there's a scene at the very beginning of the film which shows her father with her when she's a child, and Bruno is there. So we know that that dog has been with her since she was a child, before Lady Tremaine came in. And he's a fun character, and his main purpose is to be the footman on the when they transform the carriage into the pumpkin into a carriage. They transform him into a footman, and also he's the one who gets rid of an antagonist, which we will. I don't want to give away the story yet, but when we get to him.
In case you haven't seen this movie from 1950.
Well, he gets rid of Lucifer at the end.
Yes.
and helps save Cinderella.
Definitely moves the plot along.
Yes.
And he loves to torment Lucifer.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So there's a little comedy there with that interaction. So next we put the king. Does he have a name? I think he's just the king.
Yes, just the king.
And we ranked him a little bit higher than the prince because he actually has some fun moments, and he does have a definite character. Like, you get to know who he is as a character a little bit more than the prince. They show him having a dream where he's dreaming of grandchildren. And you kind of see how, he's a little pushy with his second-hand man, which we'll talk about in a minute, the Grand Duke.
And the comedy with them bouncing on that bed is hilarious.
Yes,
It's just a great moment.
He's swinging a sword at him, almost, very nearly cuts his head off.
40 foot in the air.
Yeah. And speaking of, here is number 7, the Grand Duke. And he's important because he's really the person who arranges all the things that the king wants done. He's really the worker. The king just makes proclamations, and the Grand Duke makes sure it happens. He's also the one who puts the slipper on Cinderella at the end. And like the king, he definitely has a distinctive personality. And you kind of feel sorry for him because he's always being sort of not treated that well by the king, to say the least. He's sort of the, ever humble servant, and he really has the bad end of the stick when it comes to their relationship.
I do like, though, that he stands up to Lady Tremaine.
Yeah, well, the king can put him in his place, but nobody else can. He does realize that he is important, and, he's not a pushover when it comes to other people, but except the king. So that's an interesting dynamic, too, as far as character development.
Yeah.
So next up we have a duo. We couldn't really separate them and couldn't really rank one higher than the other. And that's the Wicked Stepsisters, Anastasia and Drizella. Now, one might argue that Anastasia is a little more important because she had a little bit of an arc post-Cinderella in the sequels. But I don't count the sequels as canon, and I don't really appreciate the sequels because the animation isn't great, and it's sort of lowest common denominator type stuff. So, going by the original film, I would say they're definitely equal.
Yeah.
And they're just more memorable because of the situation they're in than necessarily having character development or anything. It's just their look, first of all, is unforgettable. And just how rotten and mean they are to Cinderella and their voices, and when they sing, which we'll talk about, yeah, the Sing Sweet Nightingale intro. It's really funny, their voices, and I when she's mocking Cinderella and she says, "Your Grace, will you hold my broom?" I love that part. So that's who we're ranking at number 6. So now we're getting into the top 5. And we rated Lucifer number 5. And this is the stepmother's cat. So he came in after Bruno had already been established as the family pet and sort of took over. And he is a mortal enemy of Bruno. Also, he is not a friend of Cinderella and does everything he can to make her life terrible. And
Bruno's the only one that he's afraid of.
Right. And Lady Tremaine, you could argue.
Yeah, but she just lets him do whatever he wants.
Right.
So,
but I'm thinking of, and one other thing. Make sure Lucifer has his bath.
Right.
That scene. So she sort of puts him in his place. He only has so much leeway with her.
Yeah.
So he's just, you can tell by looking at those eyes. It's interesting too. I feel like they based a lot of other cats on this design.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the Cheshire Cat especially from Alice the Next Year.
And there's also a cat in the Ben and Me short, the patriotic one, that looks pretty much like it's a twin sibling to Lucifer's.
Yeah, and Ben and Me, I think, was being produced at the same time as this.
Yeah.
Also, there's a Disneyland record called Country Cousin, which came out around this time. It's based on the Silly Symphony, but it's like expanded, and the pictures on the album cover do not look the same as the characters in the film, in the short. And the cat on that album looks exactly like Lucifer. But it's not Lucifer, it's just a cat in that story. So that's interesting. They did recycle this, but this is the original model, was for Lucifer. He was the first of all those cats. I did see a thing at the Disney Family Museum when I went in 2018, and the exhibit was Disney Cats and Dogs. So they had quite a bit of stuff about Lucifer, like sketches, and things. That was interesting. They sort of went movie by movie in chronological order and talked about any cats or dogs in those films. So Lucifer had a big part of that. So now, Jacques and Gus. Apparently, I kind of knew this, but never really put it in my head. It's spelled J-A-Q. And for years, I've been spelling it J-O-C-K. Even though I knew in the back of my mind that was wrong, for some reason I couldn't get it through my skull. And then when I was doing the list with Ruthie, she said, it's J-A-Q. I'm like, oh, you know what? You're right. It is J-A-Q.
It's French.
Yes.
So the mice in Cinderella are Cinderella's friends because she has no other friends, so she befriends all the mice running around the estate that she lives in. And these two sort of become the main players, although there are many other mice, male and female. These are the only ones that really have distinctive personalities and have their own sort of part of the story. So Jacques is there from the beginning, and Gus, or Gus, or Octavius, is a new member that Cinderella finds, and she puts clothes on him and they're too small, as you can see. And it's sort of like an Abbott and Costello kind of relationship. One is thin and smarter, and the other one's big and sort of dumber. That's kind of the Laurel and Hardy kind of a dichotomy with them. And they're very important to the story and really the main comic relief of the story. So, believe it or not, we're not ranking Cinderella as number 1. We're ranking her as number 3. She is a wonderful princess character, but she is more of a means to an end when it comes to the story. She doesn't really have a meaty role. Her role is to move the story, and her importance is that there would be no story without her, of course, but it's not a particularly meaty role. It's kind of, I hate to use this word, bland, but that's kind of harsh. I wouldn't really, for lack of, can think of a better word, I'd say bland, but I think that the way she's drawn, it's the way she moves, the things she does in the film are far from bland. Her design and everything is wonderful and memorable and beautiful. But as far as character, she has a little... She's really the only person in the story... Well, no, that's not true. There's 2 people in the story that really have an arc. Her and the stepmother. But, she just sort of... She's more of a reactionary figure. She reacts to the things that are happening, and people are there to move her forward. She's not like fighting for these things. She's just wishing on dreams and hopeful that someday things will happen. What's your opinion on it, Ruthie?
Yeah, I mean, she's nice, of course. You see her, she's very hopeful until, at one point in the story where she kind of does give up hope. But, she just feels like, if she keeps doing what she's supposed to be doing, eventually something good is going to happen to her. So, she does hold that hope. And, again, she's really nice to all the animals, and which is why they do so much for her, because they know she really loves them. So, I mean, she's a great princess, but you're right. You don't really know much about, like, her inner thoughts and stuff like that.
And Walt Disney once said that Cinderella is a sympathetic character, and you feel for her and you root for her. And he was comparing her to Alice, where you don't really care about Alice. She's not sympathetic, and so that's how he was trying to justify how Cinderella was such a major hit, and Alice kind of didn't connect with the audiences, at least in 1951. In later years, it grew a reputation, but upon its initial release, Alice didn't do very well compared to Cinderella.
Yes.
Right.
So next is number 2, Lady Tremaine. She is one of the greatest of all time Disney villains, and she has a lot of really, really great moments, and it's really a juicy, meaty part. The scene in the bedroom really sticks with me.
Oh, when she's in the dark.
her eyes.
Yeah, and when Cinderella's talking, she says, "Hold your tongue." And she's like really calm. She acts very calm and demeanored, and the whole time is just pure evil.
Yeah.
And having Eleanor Audley is, I mean, she's just perfect.
Her voice, nobody could capture that.
Yeah.
The way she did. One of the greatest Disney villain voices of all time as well. And her design and her demeanor, and she's not magical, which is different from other Disney villains. She's just a human being with human being capabilities, but she's just really rotten. And it's all to forward her own interests despite Cinderella. She doesn't care. It's all about her and her daughters.
Yeah.
And
she's very cold and calculating.
Yes. So, she's just a wonderful character. In a bad, I mean, she's terrible.
Right.
But wonderful
You love to
watch.
hate her.
You love to hate her, yeah. And I think this is not because she's got like a huge character development, but it's just the memorability and the lovability factor of this character puts her at number one for Ruthie and I, and that's the fairy godmother. Her voice, Vera Felton, who is another Disney regular who did many voices. Interestingly, the next voice she did was a villain. She went from this lovable lady character who's definitely not a villain to the Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland was her next Disney vocal performance. So she's very diverse. And she's very believable as the Queen of Hearts, even though she was very lovable in this part, which is very interesting.
And Verna Felton is, I mean, she's just the kind of person you want to run up and hug.
She just
I mean,
has
she's
that...
very grandmotherly. And today, the day that we're recording this, is her birthday.
Oh, wow.
I did not know that.
135 years old today.
Wow.
Wow. She really was a fairy godmother. She looked just like this because
She
they live forever.
Yep, that's true.
So, even though she's only in one scene, she really makes her mark. And
yes. I mean, she brings hope back to Cinderella and then gives her the life that she deserves. So that's why she's number one.
It's that Deus Machina thing.
Deus Ex Machina? Yeah.
Deus Ex Machina. That's her position in the story. Like, you don't know how this problem is going to be solved, and then just this miracle happens that makes everything right.
Yep.
That's her role. And she's only in one scene, but it's probably the most memorable scene from the whole film.
Yep. Walt Disney's favorite scene.
Right.
Yes, yes, exactly. And when we say that, we don't mean favorite scene from this film. His favorite piece of animation he has cited as the moment when the fairy godmother switches Cinderella from her rags into her beautiful ball gown, which was animated by Mark Davis. He has been quoted as saying that was his favorite piece of animation that he ever produced for the studio.
Just beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Even though that wasn't the fairy godmother in that, she was doing it. So.
Yeah.
So that is our top 10. Anything you want to add, guys, before we move on?
That's very close to how I would have ranked them. I might have swapped Lady Tremaine and Cinderella, but kind of a toss-up.
Yeah. I just felt like Lady Tremaine, her character is more meaty.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
more of
definitely.
a meaty role. You know, you can sink your teeth into it and enjoy the evilness of it. There are two scenes there's three moments with her that get me. The first one is the bedroom scene, which we talked about. The second one is, look at these pearls. When they rip her dress apart, where she's like, girls, I said she could come. And then she just very subtly, don't you like these I forget exactly what she says, but she sort of infers that these were stolen. And that's when the sisters, go crazy on her. And then the last scene that gets to me is when Cinderella takes out the slipper and says, "Oh, but I have the other slipper," and her face.
Her face, yes.
Yeah. The shock on her face. That's a great moment.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're done with our top 10. And if you have any arguments or disagreements, that's what the comment section is for. Again, this is just Ruthie and me. So don't blame Shawn if you disagree.
Yeah. I'll forward all correspondence to you.
Yeah.
Yes. So now we're going to have our interview. And we're going to talk to Shawn about his full score of Cinderella, which is available now in bookstores and music stores. And
well, not exactly. Just exclusively through me right now.
Oh, it will be. It will in the future. Fingers crossed.
That's the plan.
Fingers crossed.
Yes.
It will be available in bookstores and music stores. But for now, and we'll give you all of his contact information, because I know all of you, especially if there's any musicians out there, are going to want to run and grab this, because this is amazing what this is. It's not what you think it is, and it's much more than what you would think it is, and Shawn is going to tell us all about that. You have to forgive my phone ringing. This is my office. I am going to ignore it. Walgreens is calling me, so I don't want to hear from them.
All right.
Before
we talk about the project, let's talk about how we get there.
Yes.
So, Shawn, tell us about your background, both in music and then in Disney.
Okay. So I grew up and still live in Central Illinois and grew up, loving Disney music. We did not attend a Disney park as a family. My first trip was in high school. Our choir my senior year, took a trip to Disney World, fell in love with it, but that was about it. Loved all the Disney films, especially I was in high school around the time Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin were coming out. So sort of that Renaissance really sparked more of an interest. My wife and I, this has been 13 years ago, took our, at the time, 2 daughters to Disney World for their very first trip. And, neither of us had been since high school, and fell in love with it. We had a wonderful time. We got picked to be the first family in the park at Magic Kingdom on our very last day. Had no idea what that meant at the time, but, it was photos on an empty Main Street and riding the fire truck down the center of Main Street to the castle for pictures, and
oh wow,
free fast passes.
Know they did that.
This was back in 2012. We joined the mayor and all the characters out on the train station to welcome people to the park. So we got introduced. I'm holding our youngest daughter at the time, and on my left is the mayor of Main Street, and on my right is Mickey Mouse. And that was an experience that will never be forgotten. When we came home from that trip, I started absorbing all things Disney history. Just fell in love with their customer service, their attention to detail, the story that was present, everywhere you looked. And I'm a musician. My wife and I have a nonprofit gospel music ministry, and I produce concert events similar to a Branson-style show. Got a group of singers. We do a big Christmas program, programs throughout the year. So I was able to take a lot of these things I learned of how Disney did things and sort of apply them to what we do. As far as, creating these worlds that people come into and, making them feel comfortable and encouraging them and, treating them as guests. So all during that time, being a lover of Disney scores as well, I became friends through Facebook with a lady that works for Disney Music. Her name is Leslie Smith. And I had purchased a Snow White score that they had published. It wasn't like what I did, but it was similar, and found her name in the credits of the book. She was the one responsible for digitizing all of the original scores. And I thought, hey, this is a lady to get to know. So I contacted her, and we'd become friends. And about a year later, I have a kind of a calendar I've kept to watch the progress of this. In July of 2016, I first pitched this idea to her. Said, hey, I would love to study these scores. I know there are other people that would love to do that. What would you think about me? How would I get the rights to create a study score, to get a copy of the original manuscripts and put them all in the computer and get them cleaned up so that they look like, sheet music you would purchase at the store.
Right.
And it was a year later, after talking through this back and forth, that she set up a meeting with me and the head of Disney Music. I was out for my first D23. That would have been July of 2017. I pitched this idea to him, and he didn't know me from Adam. But it was a great meeting. He said he really liked the idea, but didn't know financially how it would work. It wouldn't be a lot of money for them, so it might not be worth the effort. They would have to go through, all those kind of things. He said, but keep thinking about it and try to think of some different angles, that we might be able to approach a project like this.
Right.
So lots of back and forth. In 2019, I had reached out to J.B. Kaufman. Do you know J.B.?
Yes.
The
Mhm.
author? Yeah, reached out to him, shared him my idea, and wondered if, there might be some affiliation with the Hyperion Historical Alliance.
Mhm.
And so he and I talked for quite a while. And he didn't feel like it was a good fit for them, but he was willing to help out and do whatever he could because he really liked the idea for the project.
Right.
So more and more emails back and forth. In early 2020, the head of Disney Music said, "Why don't you write me up a proposal that's got a little more details, about what you're wanting to do?" So I did that. Lots of back and forth. And finally, in February of 2020, I got the approval to do this. So that was, a 3-year process of just,
Wow.
I call it patient persistence.
Yeah.
You don't want to
Yes.
bug them too much, but you want to let them know you're still interested and serious about it.
Right.
So that was February of 2020. And we all know what happened in March of 2020
Oh, yeah.
with COVID. So everybody was shut down. Everything kind of slowed to a halt. But fortunately, all of the scores for Cinderella had already been scanned. So even with people working from home, they were to grant me access to those files so that I could start working on this project.
Oh, good.
So it actually worked out great for me. I was working from home, so I was able to kind of do a little bit more of this than I otherwise would have had I been at the office. And so for the next several years, I spent engraving and just studying these scores. And yeah, this is what the original scores look like. They were all yellowed and tattered corners and
handwritten
and
Yeah.
pretty clear. There were a few times that things I had to really question and kind of look at the harmonies and see, okay, what did they really intend this note to be? Because it was a little questionable. They also
Yeah.
provided me with like a piano vocal score and lead sheets for the songs. And so I was able to cross-reference a lot, which helped out. So I, note by note, entered them into the computer. I use a program called Finale, which is sort of the top end of music engraving programs. Had a template set up, and I love doing it. It was just to be able to study these orchestrations and see how the strings were written and how they assigned different harmonies with the woodwinds. And, it was just, for me, I was total nerding out on all of this.
Yeah.
So along with this, there's a similar project going on at the same time, and that was working with Disney to get the rights. So they had granted me the approval to do this, and then contracts had to be drawn up. I began to work with the Animation Research Library to get some samples of artwork that I might include in the books.
Right.
Disney Music also had access to a lot of production documents for this film. So I was able to get cue sheets that showed, the official names of every title. I was able to get cast lists and inter-office memos showing when certain songs were applied for copyright license. All those kind of things. Songs that weren't included in the film that were originally cut. There was a whole song set written about 10 years before by Larry Morey and Frank Churchill, who wrote Snow White. None of those songs were used, but they still had assets for those songs that I was able to see and include portions of those in the book.
Right.
So lots of back and forth and back and forth. And yeah, there's Larry Morey and Charles Wolcott, who wrote the first song set, none of which were included, but you can see them in the score and hear them in the legacy recording of Cinderella.
Those are two names that any fan of Disney music will definitely recognize, because before Cinderella, they had done a lot of other things for Disney that did end up happening.
Yes. They were sort of the golden kids of the studio at that time.
Right.
Having written so many classic songs.
And their names are all over the credits of many Disney films.
And shorts. And
shorts.
So in late 1940s is when they kind of, after, coming out of the war and kind of recouping their losses and figuring out what's next, Walt decided to hire 3 veteran Tin Pan Alley songwriters to write the score for this. And that was Mac David, Al Hoffman, and Jerry Livingston.
Yes.
And he had been really impressed with some of the songs he had heard from them. Chi Chi Ba, I think, is one of those that kind of has a similar pattern as Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo. So
yes, I read that in your foreword.
Yeah, he hired
Yeah.
them to write those songs.
Mhm.
So while I'm working with Disney Music Group, lots, as I said, lots of back and forth and contracts, and they were amazing to work with. Very helpful. This isn't a
Yeah.
huge project like the Disney company would undertake because
Mhm.
it's more niche, has a more niche audience, but they
Right.
were very supportive and thrilled that, there were people like me interested in doing this and helping preserve these legacies. So it was
Right.
very
Right.
exciting. So it was finally sent to the printer in October of 2024. Keep
Mhm.
in mind, this is, 8 or 9 years since the first pitching of the idea. And then I received the books in November and, made them available for sale. So this is what we saw the scores originally looked like. Now,
Mhm.
this is the same excerpt of that score after it has been cleaned up and
Right.
engraved.
Right.
So
So
this is
all
like what a conductor would use when conducting from the film.
right. So basically, if they followed this, it would if a modern orchestra used this, they would be able to replicate exactly what the film sounded like, because this
Yes.
is all the orchestrations from the
Mm.
actual film.
And there were interesting things that you discovered, even in the very first measure. There are
Hmm.
2 beats in the first measure that don't exist in any recording. And there's no note to say why they cut it out. I don't know if
Hmm.
it was just done in the studio on the fly
Hmm.
or, if it was done in post when they were editing the soundtrack. Maybe
Right.
it was a timing issue, but it was still there in the score. So I included it there and made note that, that it was not part of any recording that can be
Hmm.
found. So lots of those little things propped up as I was preparing this.
So I should say, as a historian myself, although I cannot read music, which I'm very jealous of anyone who can, um, I can understand your feeling of discovery when you went through these things. I wish I would have, if I was able to read music, then I can understand, like, oh, this is how they did it. Oh, look at this. This is how
Yeah.
they did it. Um, so I can relate to that in other ways when it comes to discovering new things that Disney
Hmm.
did, but this is kind of an extreme example. I could never I can't I can't think of another way in which I could be so close to the decision making
Right.
that went into this classic film as a project such as this, which is fascinating.
Yeah, and you made me think it might help to clarify for the non-musicians watching. So that image on the left is the full page of
Mm-hmm.
the first of the introduction of the main title. So the very
Right.
top 2 lines are the flutes, and
Mm-hmm.
then the oboe, clarinets, and bassoons. So your woodwinds are on top, and then underneath them are your horns, trumpets, trombones, and tuba. So your brass.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got timpani and percussion underneath that. And then you have the
Mm-hmm.
choir. I'm a choral guy, so seeing how those choral harmonies were written were, fascinating to me. And then underneath that is the harp and piano. And then at the bottom of any orchestral score, you'll find the strings. So the violins, viola,
Ah,
cello, and the
okay.
bass. So,
Yes.
and then you read it left to right, as
Mm-hmm.
the conductor would as he's conducting through this.
Mm-hmm. So this is all happening simultaneously. Everything on this page is all happening together.
Yes,
It's
top
the
to bottom,
top to
happening at the
bottom.
same time.
Right.
Right.
It's not like when you have a piano music where you go line for line. This is the whole thing all together, all the instruments all at
Right.
once.
And
Yeah.
each instrument would have their own part, much larger and easier to play in a live setting. So they're not seeing everything else, just their own part.
Right. So we should explain that this is just one page out of how many pages of music?
There's 416 pages in this book.
It's
So
the
it's a pretty
entire
hefty
film.
volume.
It's the
Yes.
entire film beginning to end, and it also includes things that were cut from the final film, as we said
Right. There
a
were
minute ago.
interesting, you can see some of the development, not only of the songs that were cut from the film, but some of the songs that currently exist in the film there were earlier iterations of
Earlier
those.
versions.
So, like for Sing Sweet Nightingale, an earlier scene had a music teacher actually there rather than the stepmother at the
Oh,
piano.
really? I see.
So
I'm
it's
learning.
still the idea of the song, but
Mm-hmm.
drastically different as the music teacher gets frustrated with their lack of musical ability. So it was
Oh,
interesting to kind
interesting.
of see that development as well.
That is interesting.
And
See,
we've
I would
included
never know something like that. I don't think anybody would without having gone through this music
and
as
be able to see those files.
carefully
Yeah.
as you did. Yeah, you making new discoveries, not just about the music, but about the storyboarding process. Oops, sorry
Right,
about
right.
that. So, Ruthie, you have more questions, I assume.
So I looked at your website and I noticed like you have a big expansion of like different things that you do within music.
Hmm.
And because we might have people that are listening that don't really know all of that, I was going to ask you a couple of questions about a little bit more of the specifics of that. So, like we mentioned a couple times, engraving and typesetting music. What exactly is that?
So engraving is actually like a holdover term from way back in the day, hundreds and hundreds of years, when music would be engraved on like a metal or a tin plate.
Right,
They would
right.
actually kind of either have a template or hammer it out, as a negative, and
Mm-hmm.
then that's what they
Mm-hmm.
would print the music from.
Like an
So,
old
and then,
press, like a
right.
Renaissance press.
Yeah, and then typesetting is sort of an interchangeable term, like, old book creators would set the type.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
That's kind of
right,
what
right.
we're doing here, putting all these notes into the computer, getting them arranged. For music publishing, there are very strict rules about where a dynamic marking goes. So whether it's loud or soft. And
Mm-hmm.
if something is a short note, that's called a staccato, and that's
Right.
represented by a dot over the note head. So
Uh-huh.
lots of rules about where all this stuff happens on the page to make it easier
Right,
for the
right,
musicians to read. So there was a lot of that process as well because sometimes practices change over the years.
right.
So looking at a
Or if it's not
1954,
being published, it might be more about what the conductor or the
yes,
orchestra understands more than what universally would
right.
be understood. Right.
Yeah, this stuff was only played once or twice in the studio and
Right.
then locked away in the vault. So it's
Right.
whatever you can do to get it the most efficient, the clearest.
Right.
So yeah, so there is a lot of that there that had to be applied to this project as well.
Right. So a lot of times you had to figure out a way to uh, translate what was being
Hmm.
said in the originals to a common audience, so everyone universally would be able to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And things like performance technique, things like a divisi marking, which means when the strings divide and play different notes,
Uh huh.
that is a non-scripty font that goes above the staff. Whereas a description of how you want to play, whether it's, passionately, something
Uh
like that,
huh. Yeah.
goes in italics
Mm-hmm.
underneath the score. So
Right.
lots of minutia to look at when you're preparing
Yeah.
something
I
like
can
this.
imagine. Sounds like how long, beginning to end, from the first time you sat down at your computer to when you hit the last button on your keyboard and said, "I'm done." How long? How long did it take you?
So I officially decided on doing Cinderella. We had talked about different projects and what they'd be willing to allow me to do. Officially started getting things in late 2020.
Uh huh.
And then the music, the book was kind of finally approved and finalized in the fall of 2024.
Uh
Now,
huh.
that's not full time, 5 days a week. That's,
No, no.
grabbing an hour here and there.
Right.
So 4 years worth of that, whenever
Right.
I would
Right.
find time to work on it.
Hmm. If you were to just sort of imagine that you were strapped to your desk, unable to leave until you finish this, how long, if you could combine all the hours you put into it,
Hmm.
even though they were not all condensed together, how many hours of work would you say it took to transcribe the full Cinderella score?
Let's see if let's just take 416 pages, and
Yeah.
let's say each page of a score took sometimes up to 2 hours, depending on if there was a lot of sleuthing to do.
Yeah.
So that would be 832 hours divided by 24. That would be a month straight, like
Oh my gosh.
nonstop, no bathroom breaks, no sleep.
That's
No sleep,
crazy.
yeah.
Good thing you weren't forced like that. That would not
Right.
be fun.
Well, and I'm working on a second project now,
Oh,
and I've
great.
learned so much from that project that I am able to, I've streamlined it now. Initially I had planned on a larger volume, which financially was not going to work out just because of the cost and all that.
Yeah.
So I had to redo some things for, the different size pages. And so I'm working much faster now than I was at that time.
Is this another film score? I know you probably can't give too much
It
away.
is. I can't say yet. Contracts are still being worked on.
Oh yeah, of course.
It's very
I
exciting.
understand that.
Yeah.
Great.
So-
we look forward to that.
The reason why you guys chose Cinderella was based on what Disney would allow you to work on. Is that correct?
Not exactly what they would allow me to. They wanted me to kind of nail down in my proposal so they could just have more specifics to work with. When I first pitched this, I thought, they probably won't allow me to do something huge. So I first pitched the idea of something like Mickey's Christmas Carol that was smaller, a
Right.
little something easier to handle.
Uh-huh.
And then I thought, well, let's go for it. So I pitched them several ideas, and Cinderella was one of them, and they, approved it. So that's
Great.
yeah. I was pleasantly surprised that they allowed that because that's kind of one of the crown jewels
Oh
you know,
yeah.
of Disney. So,
So what
I'm
was the first one you said they had? Was that Snow White or was it a different? I'm not remembering what you just said. I'm sorry. 5 minutes ago.
I had thrown out the idea of doing something smaller like Mickey's Christmas Carol.
No. You said there was a previously published book.
Oh,
and-
yes.
Was
So
that Snow
back
White?
yes, and that was what is
Yes,
called the
okay.
master score.
Right.
The master score is different than the full score. It's sort of like the Bible of the film,
Right.
where it shows what action is happening, the frames that the action is happening in. There's a melody line going along that shows what music is happening at that particular time.
Right.
But it's not specific like this. So that's the score they had scanned and released as kind of a special edition.
Does the
And
score?
that's what
Does this full score include the vocal lines, or this just
Yes.
instrumental? It does, and the
No,
lyrics.
it's the vocal lines and all the choral lines and the choral harmonies and anything musically that
all
happens
the
in
lyrics
the film.
and who's singing
Right.
at what time, even though it might have changed because, like you said, the original Sing Sweet Nightingale was not going to be with the stepmother. So certain
Right.
things changed over time.
Well, and that iteration of Sing Sweet Nightingale never made it to the recording studio.
Right.
So all that exists from that are some like piano vocal sketches that they would have worked on in rehearsals or things as they were finalizing it.
They just recorded on a reel-to-reel portable.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
as a sample. Right. So, Ruthie, go ahead.
So one of the Disney authors that wrote like a foreword in the book was Don Hahn. How did you get
Yes.
him involved in this?
So again, Facebook is my friend when it comes to making these Disney connections. And Don and I were Facebook friends. And throughout 2020, I recorded a daily hymn of encouragement on Facebook. And it ended up being 365 days, a full year's worth of hymns that I recorded and released on Facebook just to keep people encouraged during that time.
That's lovely.
And Don Hahn, who was one of my Facebook friends, started commenting on them and would send me a private message of saying, thanks so much for doing this. It was a great encouragement to me, that kind of thing. So we
that's
struck
very
out
nice.
kind of an online friendship through that. And I asked him if he would be interested in writing a foreword for the book. And he said, absolutely. He's also a historian as well with all the documentaries he makes. So he sort of appreciated what I was trying to accomplish. So
Yes.
very thankful for Don to have written the foreword for this book. He sort of equated it to some of the things they went through with Beauty and the Beast. And so that was a nice little parallel that he drew there.
Yeah, that's cool.
I must say that as much as I love Cinderella, the one that I would love if you were able to do in the future, because it's just such a fascinating soundtrack with so many weird twists and turns to it, would be Alice in Wonderland. That would be really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah,
I don't
those-
know. I'm not a soothsayer. I don't know what he's planning next. I'm just saying that's what I would like to see. That would be fun.
My interest lies with the older classic films.
Yes, yes, yes.
So I'll say that. But yeah,
Okay,
can't
great,
say yet.
great. Well, if your next project is not Alice in Wonderland, I hope in the future it will be, because that would be interesting.
I would love to keep doing these as long as they, keep allowing me to do it. So
Yes, yes.
just does take some time.
Yeah, of course.
Well, the
it sounds
first
like
one took 4 years, so
Yeah.
you're only one person, so.
Yeah. So, what has been the response to the book so far?
I have been thrilled with the response. Once I first put this out there, there are a couple other guys that I'm online friends with that release film scores similar to this. And they were great counsel to me as I was, working on this project. And one of them had released the Tangled score.
Oh.
And I think he actually started after I did, but was able to release it before I did, because this is what he does full time. And so when I announced that I was releasing Cinderella, the film score nerds and the Disney music nerds kind of came out of the woodwork. They were very excited. I have been really surprised by the international response. I would say maybe a third to maybe a little more than a third of my orders have come from overseas. A lot of popularity in Japan and Europe and Australia, Canada, Mexico.
I'm not surprised to hear Japan, because they are huge connoisseurs of Disney music, specifically. As you know, although I'm not a musician, I do deal in Disney music through my online activities. And it is very, very clear that Japanese Disney fans are very much interested in the music. So that does not surprise me.
We had some orders from the Netherlands and Sweden and UK and Spain and Italy and France. I mean, it's just really exciting.
Yeah.
And even some of the friendships I've struck up from, with people from there that have ordered it.
Right, right. It's a small world.
It is.
So I put up on the screen 2 other people that were involved probably early on. Or were they...
Yes.
Tell us what Oliver Wallace and Paul J. Smith's, who are 2 other big musical names for Disney, what was their involvement in the original Cinderella score?
So they are the ones that wrote the score itself. They didn't write
Right.
the songs,
Right,
but
that's
they
what I
wrote
thought,
all of
yeah.
the music that happens underneath.
Right.
So like if Hoffman, David, and Livingston wrote the melody for A Dream Is a Wish Your Heart Makes, and Oliver Wallace and Paul Smith might incorporate that into what they're writing, but a lot of it is purely original, not based on any of the songs.
Right. So
Any music you hear.
I can give a more modern, slightly more modern example. The Sherman Brothers wrote the songs for Mary Poppins, but Irwin Costell orchestrated it. So they're the Irwin Costells of Cinderella. Right. Exactly.
And they were, you'll find their name as well all over just about any Disney project.
Oh yeah.
From Snow White up through the 50s.
The True Life Adventures. They were very
Yes.
heavily involved in the music. I wish, and maybe this is another thing you could consider for future in 50 years when we're all still around, right? Doing the score for a True Life Adventure
That
film.
would be fun.
Because the music from those is amazing. Absolutely. I really wish Disney would release more of the original music from the True Life Adventures in digital format. Because it's some of the greatest music Disney ever did, in my opinion. Go ahead, Ruthie. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was
Finish.
just going to say, just to give you a little sample of what Oliver Wallace worked on. Dumbo, Victory Through Air Power, Three Caballeros, Make My Music Fun and Fancy Free,
Oh, yeah.
Ichabod and Toad,
Yeah.
Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, Lady and the Tramp, Old Yeller, Darby O'Gill. Just so many of these classics, and it's the sound that they created that you're listening to a Disney film when you listen to his music.
There's a fun episode of the old Walt Disney anthology show. I think it's when it was still black and white, when they talked about Oliver Wallace, how he began his career as a musician for silent films. He would sit in the theater and play music for films, silent films, and they replicated it. They dressed him up like he was younger, and they sat him in a set that looked like an old theater and had him play music live for the cameras as if he was, accompanying an old film. So his career spanned the history of films, even going back before there was sound in films.
And that's how a lot of these composers got their start. They were, theater organists that played for silent films. And that's how they were able to capture the emotion and the depth of what's happening on the stage or on the screen and enhance it.
All of those emotional cues that we hear a certain piece of music and we know it's sadness. We hear a certain piece of music and we know it's happiness or joy, a certain piece of music and it's mysterious. All that was developed originally during the silent era with these accompanists who developed all these signatures to describe what was going on the screen. That was not a thing until the silent era.
Right. And I think a great example of that in Cinderella is after they tear her dress to shreds and she runs out to the garden. That it's a dramatic, and the cue is called "A Dream Is a Wish" dramatic, because they wanted to capture her just heartbreak and devastation. And that happens when you listen to it. Something bad's happening.
Hearing it in my mind, right? I can hear that piece of music in my mind. It's very heavy strings. And it is "A Dream Is a Wish Your Heart Makes," but it's played in sort of a different register, so it sounds more dramatic, and it's
very much so.
And it kind of plays that "A Dream Is a Wish Your Heart Makes" over and over, that part of the song, and then it sort of evolves into sort of this magical sounding with the chorus as the fairy godmother appears. So that is a very powerful piece of music. Absolutely.
And Paul Smith, he was no slouch either. He wrote for Snow White, Pinocchio, Fantasia, The Reluctant Dragon, Saludos Amigos, Song of the South, Cinderella. Those two guys put out a lot of music for Disney.
Yeah, as a child, not having access to the films, because I'm from an era before VHS, so I had a lot of record albums. And these two names and others we've discussed today were all over those record albums.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ruthie.
Just a few other questions, but what was your relationship to Cinderella before this book?
I don't remember ever seeing it in the theater, but I know I had the 33 1/3 album. And I know we might have had the smaller storybook album. And then when VHS came about, I would have been about 10 or so when Disney first kind of started releasing films. And I remember going to the video store just waiting to see if Cinderella had become available. Just because I remembered listening to the soundtrack album a lot as a kid.
Yes. Yeah, that's my connection to these films, too, from early on, was the albums. Because I'm 51, so when I was 10, they didn't have VHS yet. That was coming a few years later, so...
And I'm 50, so I remember I was 12 or 13 before we ever had our first VCR.
Right.
So, or if it was on TV, I would be sure to watch it. Maybe Sunday night, Wonderful World of Disney was
Right.
showing or something like that.
And it was a really big deal when they even just showed a scene from
Yeah.
from one of these films, because
That's all you got.
That's all you got. And if you weren't there at 7 o'clock Sunday, you missed it.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't record it and watch it later. So,
Well,
Ruthie.
just the last question is,
Yeah, okay.
I know you kind of mentioned that you had, you were working on another project. Do you have anything else that you wanted to talk about that you're currently doing?
Like I said, I can't tell what it is, but I've got a couple projects in the works that are just talking contracts and whether it'll even be possible. So that's very exciting. I also co-host a Disney podcast called the Hyperion Hub. There are 2 dads in our kids' school district that are huge Disney fans, and we got connected through our children and have been recording this podcast, a weekly show, since early 2020. And so it's called the Hyperion Hub, and we cover all things Disney: films, parks, history, business, you name
So
it,
not
and we
just
discuss it.
music, everything, every
Right.
aspect.
And we've had some wonderful guests on. We've had Imagineers and directors and animators
wow.
and composers, and I've become friends with the Sherman family over the years.
Oh, fantastic.
We've had Jeff Sherman on, who I'm working on a project with him. Performers. Our most recent episode we recorded was the pianist who's currently playing at the Hoop-de-Doo Review now this summer.
Fun.
So, lots of interesting people that we've talked with that have been, it's just been a great experience working with those guys and meeting all these people.
So again, say the name of your podcast for our
It's
listeners.
called the Hyperion Hub.
Okay.
So, being Disney historians, Hyperion Avenue was the first street that the first studio was on. And then the hub, when you go to the parks and you kind of split
Central
up maybe
Plaza.
from your family,
Yep.
you say, let's meet at the hub and go from there.
The
So
center
that's
of
kind of
Disneyland in front of the castle.
Yeah, so we meet at the hub each week to discuss Disney.
Great. That's fantastic. So I have up here on the screen where everybody can get a copy of this book. So it's Deganhartmusic.com. And you can currently only get this online, but I have a feeling very soon this will be available in music stores and in bookstores, because this is a really beautiful book. I was able to look through it. I was sent a PDF of it, and it really is. It's got great pictures, the entire score, beginning to end, and some background information and a foreword by Don Hahn and all sorts of great stuff.
And J.B. Kaufman wrote 2 essays for this book.
Right.
One about the songs that were, written and abandoned, and then one about, the existing project as we know it.
Right. And it's a hardcover book,
It
correct?
is paperback.
It's paperback. It's paperback.
Yeah.
Available in hardcover, coming soon.
No.
No? Well, I'm just sort of projecting that.
You don't want a score that's hardcover.
Well, that's true. That's true. I didn't think of that, but that's
Well, I
hard
had
to
looked
maneuver on
into doing a hardcover, and with the amount of books that my contract allowed me to produce was not cost effective at all to do a hardback.
And heavy.
To
move
very
around.
Heavy. It would have been
You would have had to hire movers to.
Right.
Well, it's a beautiful book, I must say.
Thank you.
And we are very, very fortunate to have you as a guest. We'll show this screen again in case anybody watching doesn't remember. We'll show this again at the end of the show. But for now, it's Deganhartmusic.com. Get yourself a copy today.
Yes.
And now we're going to move on to our third and final segment, which is also Cinderella related. Are you ready? Everybody ready?
Let's go. Yep.
We're going to the Disney parks now. And we're going to kind of do a little history lesson here of how Cinderella has been presented in all the Disney parks around the world from opening day, 70 years ago and 3 days now. We're recording this July 20th. And up until the present. So we're not going to show you every time Cinderella was a walk-around character, or every parade she ever was in, or every live show she was in, because we'd be here until next July 17th showing you all that. But we will show you the biggies, the big things, the firsts and things of that nature. So let's get started. So the first time Cinderella ever appeared in the Disney parks was on opening day in 1955. You can't see her, but she's inside that carriage. Now, the characters for opening day were actually borrowed from Ice Capades. So Disney licensed out their characters to Ice Capades, which was a traveling show with ice skating, pretty much like what Disney on Ice is today, but non-specific to Disney. And they would have segments in their live arena shows featuring Disney characters. And so when Disneyland opened, they kind of didn't think in time to create characters. So they went back to the Ice Capades and say, hey, all those characters you licensed, can we borrow the costumes for a day? So as you can see, this brochure from Ice Capades up in the top corner here is the same carriage that you see down here during the opening day parade. This was created as a set piece for the Ice Capades, as well as the costumes. So they had all these Ice Capade costumes, and they just changed the shoes so they wouldn't be wearing ice skates in Disneyland, walking around in July. So, yeah, this is the first time Cinderella ever appeared in the parks, was on opening day. So she goes all the way back to the beginning. Now, the first attraction that Cinderella was officially featured in was the Storybook Land canal boats. This was also an opening day attraction, but there was no scenery. It was originally called Canal Boats of the World, and there was no, it was just empty shores and no greenery or anything, because they ran out of time. They had the boats, they had the canals, and just dirt all around. So 1 year later, they actually put in all the scenery and the greenery and the trees and everything and turned it into Storybook Land. And one of the big scenes in that attraction was Cinderella Castle, because the castle in Disneyland is not Cinderella themed, it's Sleeping Beauty. So this was the first time she had a permanent attraction element in a Disney park, was this scene from Cinderella. And not only does it have the castle, but if you look down, you can see a little French village down the cliffs, including the chateau, which is hard to see in this picture. The chateau with the big tower, that was in the film. The tower where Cinderella's bedroom was and all that. That's all here. And that's still there today. This original thing, built in 1956, you can still see it at Disneyland to this day. So this is officially Cinderella's castle, and then the big castle is Sleeping Beauty's castle. So next up, we jump way ahead. Now keep in mind, she was involved in parades and shows all during all this time. We're just skipping over all that stuff. So this wasn't just the 2 times, and then she was never in the park ever, except for these 2 times. So, but now we're going to cut way ahead until the 70s. And that is when, at Walt Disney World, they premiered Cinderella Castle. So this castle was specifically themed to Cinderella. So this is the same as Disneyland Sleeping Beauty Castle, but this time it's themed to Cinderella, and it's a lot taller and bigger. And when you walk through, there's mosaics on the walls telling the story of Cinderella.
Those are beautiful.
Yes, very much so. All with gold and glass, and very, very, very lovely. So, also, opening day. There's 3 opening day Cinderella things at Walt Disney World. The second one was Cinderella's Golden Carousel. Today it's called Prince Charming's Carousel, but until the 2000s, it was always known as Cinderella's Golden Carousel. So the carousel behind the castle was also themed to Cinderella, and it still is, but it's not named specifically for her. It's named for her prince, Prince Charming, but still a Cinderella carousel, just not named after her anymore. And the other opening day Cinderella thing at Walt Disney World, this is October 1971, was the Mickey Mouse Revue, which was an audio animatronic stage show featuring Disney characters, had a Cinderella segment. So it had the fairy godmother and Cinderella as audio animatronic figures. She would wave her wand, and this little stage that Cinderella was on, the lights would flicker and the stage would quickly rotate, and on the other side was Cinderella wearing her ball gown. So she would actually change her into her ball gown during the show. And these were all animatronic figures. So that was part of Disney World in 1971. The following year in Disneyland was the premiere of the Main Street Electrical Parade. So Cinderella had been in several parades, of course, up until this point. But in this parade, it was unique because she had an entire section just devoted to her. So they had the pumpkin and everything, but they also had like a royal ball with people dancing the minuet, and then they had a giant clock striking 12. So it was a whole segment from the electrical parade devoted to Cinderella. And this was beginning with the first version in 1972. And it's always remained a part of the show in every iteration ever since. So jumping ahead a little bit, during the 70s, Disneyland would do special days with special promotions and live events and character meets called Disney Days. And throughout the 70s, they would do Cinderella Days. There were probably about 4 or 5 of these, and they would have special meetings with Cinderella, special food, live entertainment. They'd play music from Cinderella as background music in certain areas. So this was one of the Cinderella days from the 70s and early 80s in Disneyland. So we're moving into the 80s now. And Tokyo Disneyland received their own Cinderella castle, modeled exactly the same as the one in Florida, although it is, I hear, a slightly smaller, like a little bit shorter, a little bit less wide, but it is the exact same dimensions and it's the same castle. So, and it's also called Cinderella Castle in Tokyo. So Ruthie, you have to read the name of this because it's in French.
I don't speak French.
Well, I don't either, but it'll probably sound better coming from you than from me. This is in Disneyland Paris. It's a restaurant. And it was there on opening day. It's a Cinderella themed restaurant.
I really don't know how to say it, but
say it phonetically.
Auberge de Cendrillon.
Auberge de Cinderellion, or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's a restaurant which sort of mimics the restaurant in Disney World, but it's not in the actual castle. It's nearby. And it's an indoor-outdoor restaurant. As you can see, it has the carriage in the background and some really beautiful buildings, kind of mimicking the chateau from Cinderella, the home of the characters, the stepsisters and Lady Tremaine. Not an exact duplicate, but sort of hearkening to it. And inside it's very royal looking, and it's very fancy. So this was an opening day feature of Disneyland Paris in '92, and it's still there to this day. Now, speaking of Cinderella restaurants, the reason we didn't bring it up until now is because although this restaurant was there on opening day, it was originally called King Stephen's Banquet Hall, which is bizarre because it was inside Cinderella's castle. So at some point in the 2000s, they renamed it, or was it the 90s, Ruthie? It was in the 90s. They renamed it Cinderella's Royal Table, but nothing really changed. It was the same as always. And one of the features of this restaurant, and when I ate there, Cinderella walks around while you're eating and talks to you. And she did that when I ate there in the 80s when it was still called King Stephen's. So she was there even before it was Cinderella's officially called Cinderella. So then in the late 90s, am I right, Ruthie? What year was this? The Cinderella?
No, this is 2003.
Okay, we're into the 2000s now. So there was a series of live shows that were both at Disney World and Tokyo Disneyland. Disney World, I believe, was just for 1 year, and then they continued on for several years at Tokyo. It also included other entertainment as well. It was much more popular in Tokyo than in Florida, but it was a live show in front of the castle retelling the story of Cinderella, and it was called Cinderella-bration. So it was a live show just solely dedicated to the story and characters of Cinderella. Now, moving ahead, 2005, they named the carousel in Hong Kong Disneyland Cinderella Carousel, right? And it looks a lot like the carousel in Disneyland in California, but instead of being called King Arthur Carousel, it was called Cinderella Carousel. And as you can see, this is an older picture because the castle in the background is the original Hong Kong Disneyland castle before it was remodeled. And originally it was just a clone of the Disneyland castle. So this is a 2005 image. Then in multiple locations and parks, Disney began adding in these little boutiques called the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. And inside, young girls could get their makeup done and their hair done and get little costumes so they could become a princess. And I believe they also do it for young boys, and they turn them into a prince. So it's for boys and girls, but it's mostly, appeals to young girls. And they're located in Disney parks all over the world now. But I believe the first one was in Florida, Ruthie? And
yes, in 2007.
Right. And now they're in the parks, in the resort. Mm-hmm. There's more than one in
downtown
Florida.
Shopping centers.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So this has become a very popular and inspired by Cinderella. The decor inside is Cinderella themed, and also it's called Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. Now, in the 2000s, Disney added a series of characters to It's a Small World, originally just in Anaheim, which were depictions of characters from Disney films from around the world. So Cinderella takes place in France, so they added a Cinderella doll along with Jacques and Gus to their France scene, and they added other characters like Alice in Wonderland was added to the United Kingdom, and the Three Caballeros was added to Mexico, etc., etc. And they were all designed in the same style as the other Small World dolls, the original Mary Blair design for the dolls. Only they were dressed up to look like various Disney characters, including this one, which was Cinderella. And in Disneyland, she's depicted in her rags, in her worker, before she became a princess outfit. But when they added her to Japan and Hong Kong later, they put her in her ball gown and also included Prince Charming. So that's how she appears at the other two parks where they have the Disney characters. Not every Small World has the Disney characters, but the one in America that has them, California, she's in her rag outfit, and the Hong Kong and Tokyo, she looks like this. Now, they started adding various meet and greets in the Disney parks, which included Cinderella meet and greets with rooms designed to be themed sort of as her character. So the first of these was in France, called the Princess Pavilion. I was wondering why it was in English, why the name of this location was in English. It seems a little strange if this is in France and everything else is in French, but regardless, you could meet all the Disney princesses, of course, including Cinderella. So this was the first of these fairy tale meet and greets. And as you can probably tell, I don't have my notes in front of me, but Ruthie, what year did that open?
2011.
Okay, so inside Cinderella Castle at Tokyo Disneyland, originally there was an attraction called something about Disney villains or something. I can't remember the name of it right now. But it had nothing to do with Cinderella. Even though it was in Cinderella Castle, the theming was not Cinderella. So they added, they took that out and they replaced it with the Cinderella Hall, Royal Hall. And now it's a walkthrough attraction with various interactive features. And at the conclusion, as you can see, there's a throne here, and Cinderella sits in the throne and does meet and greets inside Cinderella Castle. So that's available in Tokyo now. Also at Tokyo Disney Sea, their version of Fantasmic, which is on the big lake in Tokyo Disney Sea, featured a whole segment devoted to Cinderella. The other versions of Fantasmic did not have a Cinderella segment, but the one at Disney Sea had a Cinderella segment. So more meet and greets. Cinderella got a meet and greet in Disneyland at the Fairy Tale Village.
Fantasy Fair Village.
Right, and that opened in 2013?
Yes.
Right, okay. So this is Cinderella. You can meet her now all the time at the new... This replaced the Carnation Plaza Gardens next to the castle. This is now a place to meet the princesses, and there's also live shows. In Hong Kong, in 2015, they added sort of what is a walk-through version. So you're not on boats. It's sort of a walk-through version of Storybook Land, which is interesting. By the way, the Storybook Land in Paris does not have a Cinderella section. That's why it was not brought up. But there's different sections to this themed around different movies. There's a Alice in Wonderland section, I think. There's a Snow White section, Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, Tangled. And of course, as you're looking at right here, this is the Cinderella section of this walkthrough version. And each of these sections has a little frame that if you position your camera, you can get a picture of the castle or whatever the main feature is of that specific scene with the frame around it if you stand behind it the right way. And as you can also see, the castle here is an exact replica of the one in Disneyland from 1956. They actually just replicated it and placed it here as a walk-through version. And last but not least, in Florida, they got their own meet and greet, which opened in 2016, I believe. Princess Fairy Tale Hall. And this is also where you can meet multiple princesses. This replaced the Snow White Scary Adventures attraction. And now it's a place to meet various princesses, including Cinderella. So now you know.
I met Cinderella. My family and I were at Walt Disney World in June of this year, and I took a copy of my score and I showed it to Cinderella and had her sign it. So that was fun. And then she suggested that I should show that to her sisters to help with their musical training.
That's funny. Yeah. They definitely could use the help, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once again, I want to mention that you can get Shawn's book, his score, at deganhartmusic.com. That's one word. deganhartmusic.com. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can scan the code here that you can see on the screen, and that will bring you to his website as well, I believe.
Yes.
And so, yeah, we're very, very, very fortunate to have had you as a guest. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so that sort of ends our show. So, any final words? Thank you so much
for having me.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it. Enjoyed talking with you all.
Yeah. Do you have any other places on the web you'd like to promote, or
you can find me on Facebook, my own personal Facebook page, as well as the Deganhart Music page. And then I also, our ministry that does concert events is called Gospel Fest Ministries. And we do a lot of regional concerts throughout Central Illinois, and a lot of information there on our website as well.
Okay. And remember, deganhartmusic.com to get your copy. And do you still do the daily? You probably don't do it daily anymore, but
not a daily, but I have a YouTube channel that I'm starting to get all those migrated over to. So all 365 of those hymns will be on there as well.
And what's the name? You said the name of your YouTube channel, but in case people weren't listening, say it one more time.
Yeah, Gospel Fest Ministries.
Okay. All one word, right?
Yes,
Okay. So now, Ruthie, tell us where everybody can find Jiminy Crickets on the web.
You can listen to all of our past shows, including audio versions of Dateline Jiminy Crickets, over on our website, jcricketpodcast.blogspot.com. You can also listen to us on Apple Podcasts under the name Jiminy Crickets. That's with an exclamation point, and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. Over on our YouTube channel, we share updates to the Disney Chris website, including the Disneyland Magical Audio Tour, as well as past episodes of the Jiminy Crickets podcast and Dateline Jiminy Crickets. You can find our channel if you search for DisneyChris.com, and remember, .com is spelled out DOTCOM, and don't forget to subscribe and click on the notification bell.
That's easy for you to say.
You can also join in the conversation over on our Facebook page, Jiminy Crickets Podcast, where you can not only interact with Chris and me and all the fellow Cricketeers, but you can also stay up to date on the latest details of our many World Wide Web endeavors. On Facebook, Chris can be found under the name Chris Linden, that's LYNDON, as in Lyndon Johnson. And on Threads, we can be found at DisneyChris_JC_podcast. If you would like to contact the show with your comments or questions, our email address is DisneyChris.dotcom@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.
And I have a weekly Twitch stream where I play Disney music live, and we have chat with other Disney fans every Thursday, 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern, live for 3 hours. And you can find that on Twitch at DisneyChris_audio_fun. And we have a Facebook group tied to the stream called Disneyland Audio Fund. So the Twitch page is Disney Chris Audio Fund. The Facebook group is Disneyland Audio Fund. All because names were taken and I had to name things differently. On Instagram, Ruthie and I have a page called DisneyChris_JC_podcast. We post stuff there every day and also provide updates to what's going on with all our many endeavors across the web. Of course, my website is DisneyChris.com. You'll find over 3,300 audio tracks from Disneyland and nearly 2,000 audio tracks from my Song of the Year timeline, which chronicles Disney music, appropriately for this episode, from 1928 up till the present, with lots of Cinderella stuff on there. And if you would like to donate, you can go to disneychris.com/donate.html. You can not only donate to our Patreon, but there's a link to make a donation to PayPal, or you can purchase merch that helps support us, emblazoned with our logos for the website and the podcast that we do. So again, I'd like to thank you, Shawn.
Thank
for
you
joining us. And tell us again what the name of your podcast is.
The Hyperion Hub.
And when does that come out? Weekly, monthly?
Those shows, it's a weekly show, and they
Okay.
drop on Wednesdays.
Okay, so look for that every Wednesday, guys. And it was a lot of fun to have you, and I appreciate
yes.
it.
Thanks
And
so much.
I look forward to seeing more full scores from other classic Disney films or other films, any film in the future. And so we will see you all real soon, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Now it's time to say goodbye to all our company. M-I-C.
See you real soon.
K-E-Y.
Why? Because we like you.
M-O-U.